tell me where you are on the planet and say hey. And remember, you may ask any questions you desire just simply by tapping away. But do remember, I have count them, three rules for all of my broadcasts: kindness, dignity, and respect towards myself, towards whomsoever I am interviewing, and of course, towards each other in the comments. And if you are unclear as to what kindness, dignity, and respect are, imagine if your mother was standing next to you and she was watching you type whatever it is. If she would smack you in the chat, don't type it because I will block you. However, if you have a dissenting opinion, please. Hello, Ian, who's watching from Fontaine. That's nice. Hi, Ian. So if anybody has any questions, of course, now is the time, and you're free and absolutely able to ask myself and Mr. Jack the questions that you desire. So in my ongoing elections 2021 series, I just would like you guys to know that I have offered access to my channel to every single possible party vaguely involved with the elections. However, few of them have taken it up. So far, the DA has, and in the Western Cape, they are the official party of the province. They run the province. The ANC has, our friend Mr. Fontaine. Crime Fontaine. Wow, Ian, starting early, eh? Wow. Okay. The ANC has, the DA has, Mr. Jacobson has. Today is the Cape Independence Party, and tomorrow is Al Jama'ah. So they have taken up the invitation. So remember, if you like it, share it. That's what we need, like and share. So I'm going to introduce you now and hand it all over to the man who is going to be chatting for a considerable period of time. Mr. Jack Miller is the leader of the Cape Independence Party. And if you want to follow them, you look on Twitter, you'll see it's in the description of the broadcast. If you look on Facebook, it is tagged in the actual description. And now to take it away. So there he is. Hello, our dear friend. Hang on a second, change camera. Hello, Mr. Miller. How nice to meet you. Thank you for arriving. As I started, you were supposed to be a little bit earlier, but you arrived as I started. Okay, so first of all, can you just tell us who you are in the actual makeup of the Cape Independence Party before we get into the actual party?
I'm the leader of the Cape Independence Party, and we were founded in 2007. And as the name implies, we are fighting for Cape independence.
Are you actually one of the founders?
Yes.
Okay. So how many people founded the party?
Well, you know, it's a concept that I think has been around for a long time. In fact, prior to 1910, the Cape was an independent state. We had 7 different governors governing us, prior to being forced into the Union of South Africa. And
so, yeah, people need to know the history. So the country actually had 4, shall we call them city-states, for want of a better word, more like a Swiss canton, really. They were very loosely connected, but very separate.
Are you talking about the Cape? Or
no, all of it. The Transvaal, the Natal, yeah.
Well, I mean, I also thought it was around that number, but then after doing a bit more research, I found this map, and from the 1600s through to 1910, there was over 20 different independent territories. You had the Republic of Prafrenet, you had the Republic of Swillen,
the Republic of Prafrenet,
wow. The Republic of Swellendam,
wow.
You obviously Lesotho, as you have today, Swaziland. There were a tremendous amount of different territories, what we call today South Africa, that were either tribal chiefdoms or were self-governing entities. So South Africa is actually a very new concept. And as the name implies, it's not actually the name of a country, it's a geographical location. It's a compass point on a continent, south of Africa.
Right.
And it was a name that was given to us by the British Empire after the Boer Wars. And that was to try and consolidate power over the gold in the Vaal region and the diamonds in Kimberley. So South Africa was created out of an imperial ambition. And so, whether we want to challenge the British Empire or the apartheid government or the ANC regime, what we're seeing is that all three of these political entities have used a flawed political system to oppress one group and benefit one over another. So we in fact, it's not an ANC issue. It's a political structure issue, and so we know that we're never going to solve this problem unless we decentralize power down to local communities. And if the central government does not negotiate with us on that basis, we'll be left with no option but to push for complete independence and to declare the Western Cape an independent country.
Okay, so just to explain to people in other countries, the ANC is the ruling party for the entire country, which still passes, for want of a better word, federal law. And the Democratic Alliance is the ruling party for the one of 9 provinces, the one we are in, which passes provincial law. So there are provincial ministers and there are national ministers, provincial regulations, national, and then it gets even more complicated with city ordinances, as well as provincial, as well as national. So when it comes to things like the lockdown and disaster management, that's a national issue. So what we are discussing right now is a municipal election, which does not mean there will be new ministers. There will be new, perhaps, ward councillors, and definitely a different mayor, because the current mayor is stepping down for this city of 4.5 million people. So that is definitely happening. So should your party then gain a majority, you then become the mayor.
Yes,
that's a really simple question. Right? You're the mayor, right? I mean, it's not difficult. I mean, it's a Mayor Jack. I mean, there it is. Somebody just asked a question, and the question was, what happens when the Cape becomes independent? I think that is that's a hell of a long answer to that question. But basically, as I said to you, you'll need a passport to fly to Joburg.
Yeah.
It'll be a country.
It'll be its own country, which is really exciting because we then have an opportunity to start on a fresh footing. And I think so many people were hoping for a fresh footing in 1994. We were promised this dream of a rainbow nation, and after 27 years, not only has it not materialized, but you don't even hear the ANC government using these words anymore. All you hear is them talking about more black economic empowerment, expropriation without compensation, nationalization of the mines. It's more.
Sorry, Anton Boswell says, you go, Jack Miller. I'm just reading them out as they pop up. So, by the way, Franz, your social media person, is answering the questions on Facebook. So
is he doing a better job than me?
What happens when the Cape becomes independent? Franz says the Cape will become an independent country with its own borders, currency, passport, etc.
Yeah, we would absolutely. But I think that's almost the superficial layer of what an independent country or what an independent Cape could be. Passports, border. Yeah, those things are just natural byproducts of being an independent state. But borders are an important thing. For example, here in the Cape, we have got a number of people, the vast majority, the coloured population, who are being discriminated against by national policy. So that is something we would want to put an end to. And
sorry, can you give us some stats on what the proportional breakdown is of the 100% of people in this province? How many are of those different groups?
So very broadly speaking, it's approximately 50% coloured.
Sorry, as we speak, Erica has asked, is Cape Town going to be for whites only, or will it be for everybody? I'm just reading it out. There it is.
Okay, so no, but let me answer. That is a great question. So broadly speaking, coloureds make up 50% of the Western Cape. Blacks make up 30%, and whites make up approximately 20%.
So now for people in other countries who don't quite understand that breakdown, it is basically then 50 plus 30 is 80% people of color. Because in other countries, that tends to be a nomenclature that is generic to all persons who are not Caucasian. So in South Africa, we break it down further.
Well, it's the complete inverse here in South Africa because it's oppressed people make up 70% of the Cape. So Coloreds are oppressed, whites are oppressed, Indians are oppressed, Asians are oppressed.
So we just have another question. What happens to the poor of the Western Cape? It's all the same question. Yeah, it's all the same sort of. What about the people who are feeling, and I'm not going to say they are, but they feel misrepresented or underrepresented or not enfranchised, perhaps?
So let me answer the first question, which was, is an independent Cape going to be only for white people? That is such an absurd statement, because and we get it often, but it's understandable because we live in a very politically charged country. So and race is something that gets driven down our throats every single day. So I'll answer
And used ad nauseum by everybody.
ad nauseum, absolutely.
It's not as if it's something that people are actually letting go of, precisely because it is mentioned all the time by all the political parties.
Yes, exactly. So is it going to be a whites only country? Of course not. That's absolute insanity. Whites make up 17% of the Cape population. And so one way that I've responded to, I had a debate with the EFF the other day. And if you want to talk about a party that uses race as a political tool, you can certainly, the EFF is probably leading the charge there. But one of the things that I said to them is, if and they said they said that it is a whites only thing. So let's assume what they're saying is correct. Give us a referendum. Give the people of the Western Cape a referendum on Cape independence. If it is a whites only thing, the people who will vote for it collectively account for 17% of the Cape population, and we will never win a referendum, and the Cape will never be an independent country. The truth is, this is far broader than race. In fact, every single ethnic group in the Western Cape that has been polled shows significant approval and support for having a referendum on Cape independence.
So can we keep having to read out. It's not like a live TV thing, right? So Robert says, I can read the questions. I'd like to hear the answers. So we're on that. Anton Boswell says, all over candidates and people are working hard and spreading the news. I see a big shakeup coming, Jack Miller. And then France said, Jareed, due to the increased economy, more local money and more jobs, the poor people will over hopefully not too long a timeline be uplifted to middle class. Hopefully we will have more or no more poor people in the country, i.e. Singapore.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. And he also said, Erica, for all the legal residents of the Western Cape, no matter color or creed. So I think what we need to do is just explain to people the process. You are obviously campaigning as a political party, but that is not the end of the story. What you want, it's not going to happen overnight. So what you want is for a legally mandated referendum to be given to the residents of the province to ask, what happens then if the answer is yes, we want to be independent? Does it then have to be debated within the national parliament? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so
people don't know the political process.
Everything's
as an example.
Everything is it's entirely a political process. In fact, the National Prosecuting Authority, I believe it was in 2013, ruled on this issue. We had Al Jamar just a few days ago lodging a complaint with the IEC saying that what we're trying to do is treason, and we should be thrown in jail. So this is absurd. It's in the Constitution. The National Prosecuting Authority said it's a political issue. So what does that mean? If we get 50% plus one,
it's 51.
Yeah, can they hear me? Or
Yeah. Just need to project a little bit more.
I've got a loud voice. I'm
is
talking,
this you projecting? Project more.
I think we got.
Be more James about it, sir. Be more James about it.
I can come closer.
There you go.
So it's a purely political process. So what that means is if we get 50% plus one in a referendum in the Western Cape, then it would we would then have a mandate that we could then negotiate with the national government, i.e. the ANC, and so that would be the first step. We would go to them and say, listen, the majority of people living in the Western Cape want the Western Cape to be an independent country, and we would then negotiate, because obviously South Africa has debt, so we negotiate how much of that debt would be allocated to the Western Cape, or the Cape of Good Hope, Independent Cape Republic. How much of that would be allocated to South African government, or they'd probably call themselves Azania. So there'd be a discussion as to how the debt allocation. Yeah, the exit strategy. The next step would be to enter into negotiations with international partners, international countries who we trade with. So the Western Cape trades with a number of countries around the world. Obviously our wine exports are fantastic. We've got very strong agriculture. So we begin the process of negotiating with countries around the world, and all we have to do is be recognized by one country as being independent, and we would then begin the process of being of our new life as an independent state. So it's really quite simple. We just need to get 50% plus one in that referendum.
Has there been a pre-referendum, some sort of sounding of what the vote could be?
Yes, there was
a reliable source,
absolutely,
like a Gallup poll in the US.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got something the equivalent here. The CIAG put together a poll a few weeks ago, which showed that 58% of people living in the Western Cape are in favour of a referendum on Cape independence. So it's the vast majority of people that want.
So 58% want a referendum, but not 58% would want to be separate.
No.
So those are two separate things.
Those are two separate things. So it's
majority
just
wants to talk about it.
Yes.
And vote about it, but we don't know what that vote would be.
Exactly.
Okay.
So right now it's just under 50% that's in favor of Cape independence. But one of the most common answers that we get from people is that, oh, it's a great idea, but you guys are smoking crack. It's never going to happen. It's a pipe dream. So
that's actually quite good crack on a pipe dream. When I first heard about it 2006 when I first arrived in Cape Town, and I honestly thought somebody was pulling my leg. And I was invited by whoever it was at that time to have a meeting, who oddly enough, weirdly, did not show up at the meeting. That's true. And so I thought, oh, well, whatever. I've heard it every now and again, little bits. Somebody said blah, blah, blah. And of course on Facebook, been following that. And then it's gained remarkable traction. Remarkable traction. I would say it is, not that I'm working for you, please God, I do not work for you. But it has gained, I must say, almost stratospheric traction, especially during the lockdown, with the dissatisfaction with how the pandemic has been dealt with by the national government. And let me just change camera here. Hey, everyone. Hey. So for those of you that follow me on Facebook and on Twitter, you know that I've done quite a number of broadcasts from Parliament. I've covered almost every single protest except two of them, been shot at, been tear gassed. And some of those broadcasts were seen by 600,000 people in a day. And what we really had to try and explain to people, for example, there was a tobacco ban, for those in other countries may not be aware, that South Africa repeatedly banned all nicotine products, including vaping. And it caused insane dissent and also a very dark side of trade, because illegal cigarette smugglers came to the forefront. People were paying, I think it was 2,000, 3,000 Rand for a carton of cigarettes. Cigarettes themselves were going for 50 or 60 rands, and normally you get a pack for something like, $40 or something. So it's become a very bizarre dynamic. I interviewed Professor Valbeek of the Cape Town University economics professor about the economic impact, and his estimate of the excise tax lost is in the billions. And we also had suicides, people literally committing suicide because they couldn't get cigarettes. I had live broadcasts where people actually came online. Thank you, Martin. Hey, how you doing? One of my big followers from the UK. Hey, Martin. I had people who called me up while we were live and said they have a weapon in their hands and they're going to kill themselves because of lack of cigarettes. So I had to stop the broadcast, find them some counseling. So it was very, very dark. The dissent about how the lockdown has been run is quite high. It's apparently one of the strictest lockdowns on the planet. And as we speak right now, it is still curfew from midnight to 4 a.m. Nightclubs are not allowed to be open, and there are still insane restrictions on theaters. They are only allowed to have 50% of occupancy, as do restaurants. And it has cost so many livelihoods, which then has led to loss of life. So I've always been, as you know, doing these broadcasts from, say, Drifter Brewing Company, who stopped making beer, started making soup, feeding 9,000 people a day. The Hare Krishnas, who fed 13,000 people in one day at their foodathon. Peter Bachana, who fed people here on the Sea Point beachfront, 150 people a day. So the South African public really came to the forefront to help each other. But as I go back to you, the dissent with the national government about how they've run the lockdown and how it continues to be run is quite, off the charts. So I'm guessing that the Cape Independence Party wants an end to the lockdown today.
Uh,
In other words, midnight.
just about every second poll in Cape Town, we're saying it. We're saying stop lockdown now. We've been opposed to this from the very start. In fact, we were the only political party that was opposed to lockdown from the very beginning. We knew exactly what the strategy was. They said, "Oh, we just need 3 weeks to flatten the curve.
That was
weeks."
March last year.
March the 27th it began. 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Then 2 weeks into it, said, no, we're going to have to extend it by another 2 weeks. Take it to end of April. And then the DA said, okay, no. How about we have a tiered system? So you have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. And here we are now a year and a half
Adjusted
later.
level 1.
I mean, goodness me. It's insane. It is absolutely insane. The loss of life from poverty, from these lockdowns themselves, from the government restrictions, is
Easily overshadows the loss of life from.
COVID itself. And
So let's just, sorry, Mr. Miller, to just explain to people, again, not in this country perhaps, what that actually means. Oh, Jareed wants to know who will run the new country. Well, I think you're looking at it. So,
no, you actually, no, you're not looking at it. We don't believe in a centralized political system. So we believe in grassroots democracy. And so what we would do is we give tremendous power to local communities. We've spoken to various community leaders throughout the Western Cape, and for example, Boerkaap is a majority Muslim area, yet that area is forced to deal with laws that are imposed by the central state in them. We had to fight a court case for a community in Brackenfell. Mayor Patricia de Lille was going to put up, ex-mayor was going to put up a cell phone tower right in front of a school creche. The parents were totally opposed to it, and she gave it the rubber stamp, and it went ahead. And so we had to help that community fight back against that to prevent it from happening. This is unacceptable. We cannot have mayors and presidents imposing their will. Another example is Karoo. The government gave the go-ahead for fracking in the Karoo, whereas very few people fracking.
So the environmentally damaging extraction of minerals from the earth.
Yeah, by pumping down a toxic and explosive material into the deep layers of the earth.
Which stabilizes not only the environment, not only the ground, but also contaminates groundwater.
Potentially so,
destroys
yes.
wildlife, etc.
Potentially so, absolutely. So,
I love you said potentially so. That sounds as if there's a legal moment there that was just glossed over, which I caught.
It's.
I caught that.
Yeah, exactly.
France says it will be decided by the people, no politicians in power. Power to the local people, like Switzerland. Municipalities will get the bulk of funding with a very small presidential council. Presidents will rotate in the group elected by the people. I just want to quickly, to people who may not be aware, explain what happened the day the lockdown came into effect. It had to come into effect based on the WHO declaration of a global pandemic legally. And then at that point, the president ceded power to the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, who is Dr. Nkosazana Zuma, and technically is the person running the country. Technically. So the president is not vested in power as much as the person who's in charge of the Disaster Management Act, who is a minister.
Yes.
So really right now we have a minister running a country of 65 million people. So that is what is going on. So the second that the Disaster Management Act is repealed or ended, that person loses their power and it cedes back to the president.
Yes.
So all these presidential family meetings and all these are really just announcements that are made, I suppose, can we say the word rubber stamp? Decisions that were made by a totally separate department. Most people don't even know what COGTA is.
Absolutely right. I couldn't have summed it up better. It's an absolute. Well, we're in a disco here.
No, somebody just ordered something. So yay! 20 points for Uber Eats.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane what's going on, and worse than that, democracy now seems to have completely fallen to the wayside. So we have a constitution, and that constitution, the vast majority of these policies which have been put in place by the Disaster Management Act are entirely in opposition to the Bill of Rights and the South African Constitution. So in fact, our viewpoint is that on June the 2nd, 2020, there was a High Court court case put forward by Liberty Fighters Network and a gentleman by the
name. A collaboration with them.
Reno de Beer, absolutely brilliant guy. And he single-handedly, in collaboration.
No, sorry, we just had a comment which said that democracy is a tool of the enemy. Okay, moving on. So again, people can have comments. That's not necessarily. That's just a personal.
No, but I think that comment's correct.
Democracy and diversity are terms of the enemy.
Centralized democracy is a problem because what it results in is the same type of political systems that we've seen for over 100 years now in South Africa, which keep failing. Exactly. Representative democracies do not work. It's two wolves and a sheep deciding what to eat for dinner, and it just doesn't work. So yeah.
So basically, you're suggesting to take power away from government. Even if you are the government.
Yes. Yeah.
So you get elected, your party, let me rephrase, gets elected, and they expunge the power. And
yes, if we get elected, we will take power away from ourselves. We don't want the power.
I should say that again, because people don't understand that. Because people clamor for power,
yes.
And what you're talking about is the complete eradication of
yes.
power.
If we get elected, we will give away our power. We don't want the power. The Cape Independence Party is an organization which consists of citizens, taxpayers, and voters who are so sick and tired of this political system that we pledged our lives to fight for this issue. We've been fighting for 14 years. We're not professional politicians like you see in the mainstream political parties. We're here to change a political system that is failing us. And so if we were given majority control over the government of the Western Cape, we would allow the people to have a referendum to take back all of this power, which is vested in the people. These arrogant politicians think that they can tax us to death. And every 5 years, I mean, we see that the DA now has started paving roads and beautifying parks 6 months before the election. This is the book. This is the template. This is what happens. So the world over, it's not just a DA problem or an ANC problem. It's a political system problem. And there's very few countries around the world which have a good political system. And we would like to model an independent Cape on a hybrid of Singapore's economic system and Switzerland's decentralized canton system, where the communities themselves have got tremendous power over how their taxes are spent and the policies that they live under. And there's a few things that you would have in the Constitution, which is referendums, initiatives, recall, nullification, and voluntary secession. Those 5 things keep a government eternally hostage to the voters, to the taxpayers, to the citizens. And what those things are is a referendum is obviously, we know about it, it's when people vote on bringing into effect a certain policy or law. An initiative is where the people take the initiative to put forward a proposal that might become law. Following that, you then would have a referendum on it. Referendum initiative recall. Recall is when a politician has been corrupt or acted in a manner that is unbecoming of an individual in that position, and so then the people get together and demand a recall. And after a certain number of yes, exactly. So after a certain number of signatures are reached, that politician would then stand re-election, and most likely, if you've got enough signatures to get someone to stand for re-election, they mostly get kicked out. And if there's any criminal activity that they're guilty of, then they should get jail time. So this keeps politicians in check. Referendum initiative recall. Nullification. Nullification is a very nice one.
Almost as if you've done this before. It feels to me, I'm just saying, with the that you've covered this once or twice.
Yeah.
It must be quite, I'm not going to say exhausting, it must be quite, at times, quite debilitating to consistently have to explain the same thing repeatedly. Because it's literally having, am I right in saying it has trouble sinking into people's brains that there would be a whole different country?
Yeah.
It's so fanciful and it sounds so removed from reality. And it sounds as if it's something that could never ever happen. But people tend to forget, for example, even in our time, that Southwest Africa was administered by South Africa and then became its own country called Namibia. And literally that thing about at the airport you used to go domestically, then you go international, happened already. It's happened already. So we've had that template before. And there was UNTAG, remember the United Nations Transitional Assistance Group, who came in to, for JAF, there you go. UNTAG came in from the United Nations to assist in the transition of power from South African-led to self-determined, and they maintained peace and stability within South Africa / Namibia in that time. There was even a sister movie about it. Oh, shucks, here comes UNTAG, right? And so it's happened already. Sorry, I'm being interrupted by viewers. So that's Robert Caving who says, back to nullification, James. What does that mean? I have to read it out, so they want to hear, what is nullification?
So nullification is it's a fantastic policy. So it's the opposite of referendum. So referendums bring new laws into effect. Nullification destroys bad laws. So it creates an ebb and a flow, a push and a pull of policy. So so society is constantly adapting itself to systems that work. So referendums introduce things that do work, and nullification removes things that don't work. So, for example, in one canton in the Independent Cape, you could have them, let's say, bringing back the death penalty, whereas in another canton, they don't want the death penalty. So you've got two cantons, one with the death penalty, one without the death penalty. And
so Robert says, thank you, James, smiley face. I'm here to be led by the people, not, there you go. There's a similarity between the two of us. Here to be led by the people. So
basically,
so one could have the death penalty,
Yeah,
and
so
so you could have the death penalty in Clifton, and the city bowl doesn't have the death penalty.
No, the city of Cape Town would
be
be
one
one
area.
administrative
So say
body.
Plettenberg Bay,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, Plettenberg Bay would have
Which
could have
is
its own laws.
a couple of 100 kilometers away. People don't know how huge the Western Cape is. It would be a couple of 100 kilometers away, has one law. Just like the United States, not every state has the death penalty.
Yes, exactly right. So you bring it a little bit closer. So
The name,
Stellenbosch.
United States.
So Stellenbosch, for example, would have different laws to Cape Town. So you could have the death penalty in Stellenbosch and then no death penalty in Cape Town. And what would happen there is you would then be able to have different experiments going on throughout the country, different cantons with different policies. And let's say half the cantons had the death penalty, half the cantons didn't. All of a sudden, you're starting to get really interesting data. Now, data's coming back where you're going, well, wait a second, look at this. In 70% of cantons or municipalities which have the death penalty, crime rates are dropping and societies are much safer. You have much less rape and much less violent attacks, etc. So, and then you look at the cities or the territories without the death penalty. Look at the crime rate; it's far worse, etc. Or maybe the results would be different. The data itself would then advise communities what the best policies would be. So then nullification is a method where, let's assume the death penalty wasn't working. People living in those cantons would then have the option of nullification. And if the majority of people voted to nullify the death penalty, then the death penalty would then be removed from that canton. However, if cantons with death penalties were safer than cantons without it, then the canton would have a referendum to introduce the death penalty. And if the majority of people in that canton voted in favor, then you would get the death penalty in that canton.
So really
yeah,
it's sort of a local self-determination kind of idea.
absolutely. And it's a fluid system. It's a system that's constantly moving. And that's what keeps governments on their feet. It keeps them accountable. And you've got to have those checks and balances in place. Otherwise, this is what we have. I mean, look at, I don't know if anyone saw the newspaper article on Sunday. It was the Sunday Times I was reading, where it was Becky Taylor said, we're taking a new tact to the Disaster Management Act. We're no longer enforcing laws. We are now communicating laws. Okay, so they're no longer going around beating people with batons and throwing them in the back of vans for minor infringements of some of these ridiculous policies. They're now going to communicate it. Well, isn't that nice that the police whose salaries we pay are now communicating to the citizens for whom these laws are supposed to be to our benefit? And it is that because and then further on in that article, I think it was Becky Taylor also that said,
so just explain to people that is the current minister
of police, also said that we don't want to be infringing on political parties' rights to campaign and to be seen as infringing basically on our constitutional rights. So here we have an election. An election is just a few days away, and the 1st of November, and the Minister of Police is saying, oh, we're no longer going to arrest people. We're no longer going to beat people with batons. We're going to very politely take them aside and ask them, would they please comply with the regulations? So elections keep governments accountable. They keep police accountable. They keep the ecosystem accountable. So when you have elections once every 5 years, for 4 years and 10 months, you basically got an unaccountable system where we have no voice.
Robert has said, I'm awfully sorry, sir, I just have to read them out as they happen. I wish Becky Taylor, the Minister of Police, would tell the Seapoint Police, who recently beat up a woman for protesting for free choice. That, I think, refers to the incident on the Seapoint Promenade with the weekly anti-vaccination protest. Again,
those protests are
I don't understand the protest. Can I jump in here and be an absolute dick about it? I don't understand. It isn't mandatory. So why protest that it's there? There's so much else going wrong. This is a thing you're not being told to do. There is not a mandatory. This is not United Airlines or Delta or American who are going to fire you if you don't have a vaccination and you're working for them. This is a country where we have decided, people, if you want to be vaccinated, be vaccinated. You don't, you don't. I don't understand the process.
Okay, well, first of all, there's a number of layers to that question. First of all, the media was actually reporting on those protests incorrectly. They were not anti-vax protests. There were a number of different reasons for people taking to the streets there. One of them was anti-lockdown.
So can I just tell you that Erica has said, I'm concerned Cape Exit will be no different. Demographics is destiny, really. I don't quite know what that means, but okay, I read it out. So as you were saying, so there's more than one issue being protested.
Yeah, and so the issue is not.
I wasn't there. I didn't know.
I mean, a lot of the support protesters aren't anti-vax. They're anti-forced vaccination. They're anti-vaccine passports. And
good that you brought that up.
And I think that's something that we really need to talk about, because this is an incredibly terrifying policy. If the government,
medical apartheid.
It's medical apartheid. That's exactly what it is. You're basically going into the most intimate, private parts of people's life and going, what are your personal medical records? What are your personal medical decisions? And basically giving people a status based upon their personal, private medical decisions. And
which affects their home, their work, their family life. In New York City at the moment, you cannot go into a restaurant unless you are vaccinated. France has passed similar laws. Italy is passing similar laws. It isn't, it may happen, it is happening.
exactly,
You
exactly.
already have to go through such a huge hoopla to fly, even in this country. And then you don't get food on the plane. I don't understand how a sandwich is going to kill you. I'd like somebody to explain to me how a sandwich is going to murder you flying from Joburg to Cape Town. Be that as it may, you can get water, but only if you ask for the water. If you bring your own water, you can't drink it. And you have to keep the mask on in the plane, which already has HEPA, the highest efficiency filters, the same filters used in surgeries to filter the air are the same ones on the aircraft. So I'm a bit confused as to how we now have to spend, imagine flying to London with a mask on for 12 hours or 11 hours. I mean, and that's as you go in the airport. So now some people are waiting 6 hours to get onto a flight.
Yeah.
Then you have your 11-hour flight. And believe me, you're not getting out of Heathrow in an hour. Okay, so it's close to 25, 30 hours that you got that thing. Robert says the vaccine is very clever. Okay. Erica said, oh, what I mean is the dominant race determines how the country becomes. And from your talk, Cape Exit has very low white or Afrikaans race.
No, well, okay. I mean, I want to answer the vaccine passport, and then I'll answer that question.
Yeah.
So those thousands of people, I think it was 2,500 in one of the last protests there. Those thousands of people that are taking to the streets are marching for everyone's human rights, everyone's freedom of choice. And so, exactly, you spoke about what's happening in France and other parts of the world. This is not hearsay. The government is talking about introducing a vaccine passport, which is medical apartheid. So, so I think those people that
I already downloaded my electronic vaccine certificates. It took a day and a half because the servers don't work, but I've got it now. And it's an unreadable QR code. Did you know that? You can't read it. It comes up as complete gibberish on your phone.
I didn't know that. But
there's a special reader that's going to be issued, obviously.
Oh, really?
Yes, by the department, which now means that they're going to know that I went to spa, then I went to a movie, then I decided to stop at an ice cream shop. I'm kind of a bit worried about that. I'm not worried about the fact that my data's there, it's there. But the fact that they now know every single solitary thing is a little spooky. I think spooky is a good word.
Well, what's also concerning is they're saying that the goal is to model this off the credit system. So basically, it's beginning.
Oh, China's already doing that.
China's credit system. Yeah. So basically, if you don't purchase goods that are approved by the government or by insurance companies, then you get a lower credit score. So,
or you're allowed to buy a home, or you're allowed to use a certain kind of public transport, or you're allowed to buy at a certain time in a store.
Yeah.
Off peak.
Yeah. So let's assume you're someone who likes chocolate cake and you buy a lot of chocolate cakes. So you're going to get a lower credit score, and that's going to
because you should be eating carrot cake.
So you're going to be so you're going to be paying more on your insurance. You're going to be paying more on various aspects of your life. It's how terrifying is that to think that the government has the right to know that level of private information about you. That is
it's exceptionally Orwellian, I would say. It's very Orwellian.
And that's where the vaccine passport is going. So,
sorry, Derek has just said something. He said, race is not the issue. It is an issue created by the mainstream parties and media to keep us divided. We want freedom. It is time for Cape Exit. You know, let's just pause for a second and just clarify. Again, I had this discussion with you off media. Can you please walk us through? You say Cape Exit on your posters. I have invited Cape Exit on here repeatedly, and they have, to date, despite many phone calls, never come on. Stop smiling. So I see that because we had this off media thing. I know where this is going. I am confused until I spoke to you. What is Cape Exit, which is not a political party, to be clear? And what is their link to you, Cape Independence, who says it's time for Cape Exit? I think is where the confusion comes in.
Yeah, so this is a very unfortunate situation. So we created Cape Exit in 2016. And
so that's your word?
Yes, we created the brand name Cape Exit in 2016. We've been campaigning with Cape Exit. We campaigned in the 2016 elections, and we've been using that word to express Cape independence ever since. We think it's a fantastic word. We decided on it after the Brexit referendum. So just as the UK Independence Party is fighting for Brexit in Britain, we, the Cape Independence Party, are fighting for Cape Exit here in the Cape. And so in 2018, 2 years after we created Cape Exit, we were approached by a group called the Afrikaner Society. And a gentleman by the name of Des Palm was the executive director of that organization. And so they said, look, we really like the word Cape Exit, and they wanted to rebrand the Afrikaner Society to Cape Exit, and they asked us permission to do it. And we said, absolutely. We said, Cape Exit is a fantastic name. It's a short, sharp abbreviation of what we're all fighting for Cape independence. And in fact, we feel that everyone in the Cape independence space should be using the word Cape Exit to fight for this vision and explain this vision. So we told the Afrikaner Society, go ahead, we'll give you permission to also use the word Cape Exit. We've got a signed document from their organization stating that they are tremendously grateful that we're allowing them to use that word, and that they will never we contacted Facebook and we said, you know, what's going on here? And Facebook came back to us and said, no, sorry.
So just hang on, I think
yeah.
we've lost signal. Just give me 1 second. It is frozen on you. Okay, sorry guys, just give me 1 second. Let me just change. No, it's frozen. I'm hoping it'll come back, so just give it a second. Sometimes this happens. So guys, if you're watching this, I do apologize. We're having a very, very small and bizarre technical hitch where it is frozen on Mr. Miller, and we're hoping that it does. It has returned. See, sometimes patience. All I'm saying, sir, sometimes patience. Let's just check and see. Carl says not frozen. Hi, Carl. Okay, so can you guys just say, you can see Mr. Miller, just type something, say, hi there, we can see you, or something like that, so that we just know that everything is okay. If somebody just saw him take a sip of water there, you can just say, saw the water. Before we go any further, otherwise we'll start and we'll do a new one. I'm just trying to see, because I'm watching this, I'm actually watching this on another device to make sure that it is working properly. Ah, you're drinking the water. It's cool.
So just
You may, as somebody said, yeah, we go, Jack. Carl Bowden.
are we on?
So there's a whole debate going on right now in the comment section. Garth says, we see you drinking water. Garth Roberts, so there you go. You're hydrated, so that's good. Erica and Derek are having a conversation about okay, I'm not getting involved in this one, you guys. This is a conversation about one side believes that mixing races doesn't work, and the other side believes that mixing races does work. So I'm going to leave that one. I will, however, just say, guys, please, kindness, dignity, and respect towards each other. By the way, Kenya, Eric is in Kenya, and she's watching us. So hi, Kenya. So just FYI, guys, whatever you say, please do it with kindness, dignity, and respect towards everybody, all right? I'm not going to read out the comments about that multiculturalism and races not mixing and things like that, because it is not what I stand for. But if that's your view, that's cool. Sorry, Mr. Miller, do continue with Cape Exit. You woke up one morning and suddenly they had taken your page away.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So we created this Cape Exit page, Facebook page in 2016, and we've been using it to campaign for Cape independence ever since then. We gave Des Palm and Afrikaner Society permission to use the word Cape Exit 2 years later in 2018. We got a signed letter from them saying that they will never try to register this word, take exclusive control over it. And then this year in May, we woke up one morning and our Cape Exit Facebook page had been shut down. So we went.
Is that why you now have Cape Independence Party?
No. I'll explain how we
Oh,
got
yeah,
there.
okay.
So we then went to Facebook and said, listen, what happened to our Cape Exit page? And Facebook came back and said, no, that a request was put in by Mr. Palm to shut down our Cape Exit page. And so when we looked into the reasons why, it was
Sorry,
because
Garth would like to know if he can move here. He lives in the Northwest Province. If he votes for Cape Exit, can he move here? He wants to.
yes, he's welcome. Anyone's welcome. This is the thing, we want to first
You're like Samsung. Everyone's invited.
we want a first world country, and yeah, anyone's welcome, provided they don't have a criminal record and they have some assets that they wish to bring, some value that they will bring to an independent Cape. But yeah, to finish off, so basically, we found that our Facebook page had been shut down by Mr. Palm. We then asked Facebook why was that happening, and they said no, they got a request. And so basically, he'd gone to the CIPC and tried to
Sorry, what is that?
It's the company's intellectual property and commission. So he'd gone in his private capacity to try and register the word Cape Exit, which we created and gave him permission to use.
In contravention of what they said they
in
would do.
contravention of the signed agreement. He tried to take this word Cape Exit and register it in his, first of all, not in his organization, and in his own personal name under the category of business. So, it's a little bit concerning where we were happy to let anyone in the Cape Independence space use the word Cape Exit to fight for the vision of Cape Independence, and then an individual comes along and tries to take exclusive rights in his personal capacity for business use. So therefore, there's a financial benefit to having something registered in your own name for business use. So, that was obviously very concerning to find that out. And we sent multiple emails to Mr. Palm, asking to try to resolve this amicably. He ignored our emails. We tried to set up a meeting with various players in the Cape Independence community to try and resolve it, and they refused to attend that meeting. So after a month, we were left no option but to approach the courts, and it was an absolute slaughterhouse. The judge and the courts and their lawyers looked at all of the documents, and the entire court ruled everything in our favor. So
But now I'm confused because they still have that name.
yeah, we don't mind. We don't mind that they're using the word Cape Exit. In fact, there's another group called Cape Exit RSA that's also using the word, and the word Cape Exit. It's imagine going to Britain and telling people they cannot use the word Brexit to identify with independence of Britain from the European Union. So no, Cape Exit is a beautiful word that we believe the Cape Independence space should
Is that
be
why
using.
your posters say it is time for?
Yeah, so it's,
You're not the Cape Exit Party, you're the Cape
no,
Independence
it's our abbreviation. So with the Cape Independence Party, and our abbreviation is Cape Exit. So we're fighting for Cape Exit from a political angle. The Cape Exit RSA group is fighting from a social angle. The Cape Exit NPC registered non-profit company and in Des Palm's name is trying to get enough signatures to negotiate with the government to give us a referendum based on getting 1.6 million signatures. So these are the different angles of attack that we're all taking. So yeah, we're fighting for it from a political angle, and they're fighting for it from a petition non-political angle. So there's various ways to skin this cat, and yeah, I think these petty political issues should be left behind. We all need to focus on the bigger picture here, which is trying to get as much support across the board, whether it's on the through the political system or through civic movements. We need to get as much support as possible for Cape Independence, and hopefully these organizations can see the benefit of that, and stop with the slander and focus on what's really important.
All right, so let me ask you in one quick sentence, In other words, a single sentence. Vote for the Cape Independence Party on the 1st of November because. No, it's not difficult at all. Just take all of your campaigning and all of your efforts and make it one sentence. By the way, I do this to everybody, so don't feel bad.
Yeah,
Vote for us because, really, I mean, in one sentence.
vote for us to put the Cape first, to put you and your family first, to put your children and your grandchildren's future first. If we carry on in this strapped to the South African ship, we're going to end up like Zimbabwe. We all saw what happened in KwaZulu-Natal a few months ago. People
For
getting
people who don't know, there were multiple riots,
multiple
looting.
riots, shopping centers burned to the ground, communities burned to the ground, vigilante mobs shooting people dead in the streets. It was absolutely
Basically purged the movie, the reality. Really, I mean, honestly, really. It was.
Yeah.
I've got video
it
that
was
was
great.
given to me about the snaking queues the day after the riots at the Windermere Shopping Centre. A person went there that I know at 6 a.m. and at 4 p.m. They left and went home. They didn't get into the shops because the shops were allowing one person in, two people in, and they had money. They were trying to buy things. They didn't have toilet paper, tomato sauce, sugar. So it was really seriously survival time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dog food, cat food, baby food. It's not just humans always that are involved in these things.
Yeah.
So then my last question, which I always ask at the end of every broadcast.
Well, let's finish
Oh,
that.
you still
Let's
are.
finish
That's
that.
a long sentence.
Let's
Mr.
finish
Miller.
that. No, I gave the sentence, but now
Okay.
I'm giving body to it.
Go for
And
it.
if we don't want what happened in KwaZulu-Natal a few weeks ago, then
Sorry, Carl's voting for.
then the only choice is to make the Cape an independent country and govern ourselves.
Do you think that the rest of the country should follow suit?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
there should be Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, the country, the Free State, the country, Northwest Province, the country,
Absolutely.
Mpumalanga, the country.
Yes, and in fact, I've had very good relationships with groups in KwaZulu-Natal. There's a group called Shaka Zulu Nation that's calling for independence for KZN. There's the Abutembu tribe, the Royal Abutembu tribe in the Eastern Cape that is calling for the Eastern Cape to become independent. There are Sutus in Lesotho who feel that when the Queen delineated the borders, that they got hard done by. And if you look at the historical maps and demographics, they've got a very strong argument. There are Tswanas living in the north of South Africa that want to secede to join Botswana because their brothers and sisters living in Botswana have a higher standard of living than the Tswanas living in South Africa. So there are a wide, varied number of groups throughout this South Africa that that are fighting for greater political and economic control over their own affairs. So this is not just a Cape issue. This is really a problem that runs across the country. And this is why we said we're not just against the ANC government. We're against the ANC government. We're against the apartheid government. We're against the British Empire, which got us into this mess. And the only way that we can get out of it is by breaking this political system. And everyone in this territory will benefit, whether you are white, colored, Indian, Asian, black, Xhosa tribe, Zulu tribe, Tswana tribe, Venda tribe, etc. We will all benefit from a decentralized political system.
And now, at the end of all my broadcasts, I ask people one sentence, Mr. Miller. Okay, by the way, just have to read out. Erica, you will love the vision, see the manifesto. Jeannie Martin says economic survival, removal of political power, power to the people. France agrees with you. Carl's voting for you. Erica understands because they've been explaining in the comments to each other. Thank you, people who are explaining to each other. So my final question is, with 1 minute to go, do you have hope?
Yes, I do.
Good. That's
We
well
have
done.
we have the Cape of good hope.
Wow. It's almost as if you should be electioneering. It's almost as if. Jeannie says, fantastic interview. Derek says, I'm voting for CIP. Oh, you, Cape Independence Party. I've never seen it in initials form before. So a question that I haven't asked anybody else, I am confused. When we go to the polls on the 1st of November, are there sections for your ward, i.e. your local area, and sections for The mayor.
Yes, 100%. So it's not mayor, but it's proportionals list. So
Sorry, Fran says you killed the interview. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. You guys, I love you all. I do. I really do. You know, hey James, you're doing really, really well. Would be great. Just one comment on my own channel from my own people would be just, you know, I'm just saying. Not that you've hijacked it. Did you see what I did there? Did you see what I did there? Okay, so Francis, killer host. Oh, bless his little heart. So, you were talking about the different, shall we say, sections of the voting ballot.
yes,
And people are calling you right now. How cool is that? So the sections on the ballot are going to be local ward, pick a party.
Yeah.
Mayor, pick a party.
local ward and then proportional list. So basically, what's going on there?
No, people are just sending lots of compliments to me now. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, so there's going to be your local ward.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be the PR list. So
The what list?
Proportional representation list.
Okay.
PR. And so people, you know, we urge people to vote Cape Independence Party on both ballots. But you know, if there are people that are absolutely hell bent on voting for, you know, one party in their ward, they're welcome to vote for that party in the ward, and then vote Cape Independence Party on the proportional list. So the more votes that we get, the more ballots that we can get, the greater percentage opportunity we will have to have this vision of Cape Independence in the city of Cape Town and throughout the Western Cape.
Did you want to say Gauteng?
No, city of Cape Town.
No, okay, just checking. All right, Mr. Miller, final question. To people who have, yikes, people who have chosen not to vote before, why? Because the time has now ended for you to register. It's done. I did it electronically, but it's done. If you weren't registered, you can't. But those who are registered and those who vote are never the same numbers. Why should somebody get off their bony ass and go to the polls this time, as opposed to the last one and the one before and the one before and the one before? Why now? Why go vote, not just for you, but for anyone?
I think circumstances in this country have become so outrageous, and I think the last year and a half of lockdown measures and the government's overreach into every aspect of our lives, the collapse of the economy, which manifests itself in the violence that we saw in KwaZulu-Natal a few weeks ago. These are all signs that this country is heading towards a very dangerous situation. And the reason we have a legal system and the reason we have a political system is because these are methods and tools to peacefully resolve economic and political problems in this country. And
Sorry, just give two stats at this point. Radio 702 a short while back said that 1 in 5 adults, that's 20%, are going to sleep hungry this night. Al Jazeera, I believe it is 16 days ago, ran an article saying South Africa has the highest unemployment rate on the planet. And if I am not mistaken, it was 76% unofficially. That's 3 out of 4 people who are looking for work actively will not find it. So just to give context, that's the reason why you think people should vote, because that's the only way to fix this.
These numbers are mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And so if people are concerned about human rights, if people are concerned about freedom of choice, if people are concerned about the improvement of the economy, then they need to get out there and they need to vote. And I would urge people to vote against the status quo, against the ANC, against the DA, and to vote for organizations that are trying to really change the system. And we certainly are going to do everything within our power to fight against the trajectory that this country is going in.
Mr. Miller, thank you very much. Of course, you are welcome to come back onto the channel at any point between now and then. And if possible, on voting day, I'd like to follow you and everybody else I've interviewed as well and see where they are and what they're doing, if I'm invited. Not that I'm putting you under pressure or anything, because I would never do that. I think it's very tacky for people to use live media as a means of engendering.
I'll answer that question after the
Oh, is that what's happening? Oh, okay. So there's going to be a private moment where I may or may not be invited. Okay, cheers. Thanks a lot. Yeah, freedom of the press. So I feel that second stage is leaving us. All right. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you for giving up the energy. And of course, thank you very much for spending some of your time explaining where your party fits in the kaleidoscope of what is going on. And wishing you and your guys much luck. And let me just say goodbye to everybody else. All right. So, everybody else, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. Again, guys, please be nice to each other. There was, verging on some nastiness, but just, keep it kind, respectful, and dignified. And as I always say, thank you so much to everybody. Oh, what's happening behind us? Thank you so much to everybody. So wait, Jeannie says, you don't need to be born here to be a citizen of the Cape of Good Hope. You'll be welcome to come and help us build a future. Please visit the website and join us, capeparty.com, and share. Thank you, Ms. Martins. Shameless self-promotion. A bit rich coming from me, but anyway. So thank you everybody for your time and your energy and your efforts. And as always, thank you for watching. Please like and share on Facebook, retweet on Twitter. And again, to all of my haters, thank you so much for pushing up my stats. Goodbye.